Netflix and 50 Cent just pulled the curtain back on one of the most disgusting and powerful men in entertainment. Darker than anything any of us imagined. Secret hotel room footage, a $200 million money move, new witnesses, and allegations that will change how you think of Diddy forever. Everybody he touched, he destroyed. Facing violence, potential death, extortion, entrapment, abuse.
He was the perfectionist of dangling that carrot. You know you can't leave me. That was their money ticket.
And of course, who's behind the curtain of that one? Shocking. Diddy. He had power. He's manipulative, but he's dangerous. You could feel the noose around his neck coming days before he was arrested.
They took a guy into a bathroom and shot him. How does no one get charged with a murder of a person?
Do you think these witnesses, their life is in danger for speaking about Diddy like they did? Netflix and 50 Cent just pulled the curtain back on one of the most disgusting and powerful men in entertainment, Diddy. And what they reveal is darker than anything I think any of us imagined. Secret hotel room footage, a $200 million money move, new witnesses, and allegations that will change how you think of Diddy forever. This is The Reckoning on Netflix. We're talking about it today. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Zenner. This is Tom Zenner Scandal. You're watching 1 Degree of Scandalous. I'm the co-host along with the one and only Cato, K-Train, Kalen. Kayla, I want to get into this right away. You and I both watched this thing, as did millions and millions and millions of people. I got to tell you, I couldn't wait for it to end. It made me sick. It disgusted me. You know, usually a Netflix doc is so captivating, and this was so well done. Kudos to 50 Cent. You are a hero in my mind, 50 Cent. You really are. We're going to get into this, but I couldn't wait for it to end. I just had a sick feeling about me that this guy, Diddy, got away with this crap for 35 years, and we're going to get into all of the new revelations today and talk about potential implications. But how did you feel watching this thing?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tom, I had no interest in Diddy at all. I had nothing. It was like another Diddy story. As soon as I watched the opening scene of him in the hotel room talking, I was captivated. I feel like it was 50 Cent was like on SEAL Team 6. He went in, he got the footage from this videographer, and it was so compelling. It is, like you said, it is so well done. And all 4 episodes, you're on the edge of your seat. I watched it in one sitting, which I rarely do. And I'm telling you, my opinion completely is different of Diddy. I thought, this guy's probably okay. I met him one time or maybe twice at the Playboy Mansion. I would not want to have any association with this person at all. The way that he used, which we're going to get into, how he used his friends. It's just like everything you're taught when you grow up of being a good person, he did the opposite.
Yeah. You know, everybody he touched, he destroyed. If you came into Diddy's periphery and his life, your life is over as you know it. You were facing violence, potential death, extortion, entrapment, abuse. This guy, and you know what? The doc did a good job of showing how he evolved, right? And his background, which doesn't excuse anything. But I learned a lot from this that we're going to get into. And I guess, Cato, before we get into like the top 10 things that we're going to reveal from this. And by the way, you don't have to be a hip hop or rap fan. This is a crime. This is true crime at the core. And we're dealing with a true monster. All right. Ryan Murphy might have his next one right here. Monster Diddy. But Cato, do you think they have Netflix available in prison? Because I wonder if, what the reaction with his prison mates are going to be when they see this.
That's a great question. I think that any visitor coming in is probably telling him, if he hasn't seen it, and this is probably their last visit to see him, saying, you are a POS, a piece of. And like I said, it is this deals with, Tom, not only just extortion of money, never paying thing, possible murder.
I mean, we'll get into all of it. So let's not hold back anymore. Let's just dive right into this. And we'll start by saying 50 Cent, hell of a job. You took a big risk here. You got footage that no one even knew existed, and you did a great service here. So thank you for that. And Cato, the thing starts out with exclusive hotel room footage, which was technically really days before his arrest in September of 2024. So you can see how Diddy packages things. He hires a videographer and a crew to follow him around. Big mistake now that we've seen it, but weren't you blown away when you saw that and saw his interactions?
Completely. And the thing is, Tom, I wonder after seeing all the episodes if the videographer was even paid or how was going, because you think about it, you look at the story of everything of how he gets everybody on a string. He's got the carrot dangling, in front of Danity Kane, and he's got these things that he wants to own a person. He wants to own you. He wants complete control. He is I think, the most narcissistic person that I've ever seen, in this documentary. I think the videographer just, well, we know it. I think 50 Cent got the footage. I think it's because Diddy probably promised him everything, but he never got paid. My opinion.
Yeah, nobody gets paid in his world. Nobody. His business partners, he'll steal their equity. He'll promise people big advances for their music career on their first album. He will never pay him. And we're going to get into more that's going to show evidence of this that like literally blows your mind. Like, how did he get away with this for 30 plus years? How is he alive? When he's dealing with some of the people that he's dealt with and what he was behind. But, this behind the scenes video that he hired a videographer shows him strategizing with his PR people, strategizing with his lawyers. If you call it strategizing, basically say, hey, man, you could feel the tension. You could feel the noose around his neck coming because this is days before he was arrested. He was under serious federal investigation. And then one of the most shocking things about this video is when he stages this thing when he goes into Harlem to meet with his people, right? And he's out there glad-handing people. And you probably just needed that rush like you saw with OJ, right? To just be out there with normal people to feel the love and all the benefits that fame brings you at that level. And then when he's done, he says, hand me some hand sanitizer. Yeah. I was with like the dirty people out there. I mean, right. That just set the tone.
I like the way, Tom, you prefaced it just perfectly. You see him unraveling, and I could feel it watching it. It's that look of, I'm in big trouble.
Mm-hmm. And Cato, you might be wondering, and I think you even mentioned right off the top, like, is 50 Cent, going to be liable for anything from showing this footage? Let me tell you something. I have firsthand knowledge of the army of lawyers that work for Netflix. It's an army. Okay. They're not putting anything on their streaming service that might come back at them. It's impossible, especially for something like this. So, I mean, this is pretty simple. I mean, the person you made a great point. I bet you Diddy didn't pay the videographer. So that is intellectual property of that videographer, that production company, whoever shot that. And I'm sure they happily sold it to 50 Cent. And, 50 Cent, he's a savvy businessman, right? He did vitamin water and made close to $1 billion. He's just sharp. Yeah, he's had a 20-year feud with Diddy, and he hates him. But it's because he knows who he is, right? He knows what a piece of scum that he is, and maybe there was that motivation for him to expose him here, and I'm glad he did.
Yeah, I think exactly that, Tom. I think that 50 Cent said Diddy's been pulling the wool over people's eyes. I'm going to show people who this person really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cato, there was another thing in that video is this $200 million phone call where Diddy calls Dana Tran, the mother of his youngest child, and says he's about to deposit $200 million. So basically he's moving funds, right? He knows that the feds are coming, and he was kind of bragging about it. The banks are going to stay open for me, but that, there were points here where he didn't, in his career life, whatever, when he was with Bad Boy Records or producing music and whatnot, where he owed people money or they needed $5,000, he couldn't even pay them, right? Because everything was spent, everything was hidden. It was a house of cards. It was, a shell game financially. But when he's talking about moving $200 million, that's got to be another piece of information that might be brought up again when he gets out of prison.
Right. Yeah. I like I said, I wonder if it's the Cayman Islands or where he moved it to. He said the bank stayed open for him. So we're going to find probably all this out only because of this documentary. All these people are going to have, so many lawyers are going to have questions of who this guy really is. I don't want to jump the gun, but I do want to say something that really bothered me. And it was, I think Diddy, fame is fleeting. I know that. And you can't believe the hype. He believed the hype. And I think that when Biggie had died, that his goal was for him to be the actual star. And I think after a few days after Biggie died, he did the song with Sting. I could feel zero sympathy for Biggie of what he was talking about there, but all the adulation he was getting because he knew, I'm with Sting, I'm on the stage, and they are. people are buying into him when he was trying to make it like a dedication to Biggie, and we know how that worked when he had Biggie actually pay for his own funeral.
Yeah, yeah,
I
we'll
could
get
go
into
on,
that.
but you know,
We'll get
Tom,
into
what I'm
that.
saying.
We'll get into
Yeah,
that because
exactly. Though that really bothered me, though.
oh yeah, Biggie Smalls is a legend, and what he did to him is just like it's unspeakable. Okay, then now there's another thing, and you always go, okay, what's that moment? What turned somebody into just this despicable piece of garbage human being? What is it? Oh, did something snap? Were you born that way? Was it years of influence? Because you have to rationalize how somebody can be this evil, right? It has to make sense in your mind as a viewer and as a normal person with empathy and compassion and a conscience. Like, how do these people do this? Right? How do they get up every day and do this? And they're master manipulators. They have the ability to create such fear, and all these people were dependent on Diddy. So he was a puppet master at the highest level. But one thing this doc did, and I thought 50 Cent did a fantastic job, is packaging the mother's relationship, Janice Combs, right? So Diddy's dad was apparently murdered in, he's kind of a low level thug in New York City and was murdered in Central Park. So his mom raised him all by herself, right? And she was attractive. She had some charisma. She would host big parties. But there was a scene where they talked about the next door neighbor who was his best friend, that she used to really physically abuse him, right? And I'm sure he was always looking for his mother's affection, for her to, because he didn't have a dad. So she was everything to him, but she was pretty nasty, pretty physically abusive. And you never get that because he kind of has this persona that he has this super close relationship with his mom during the trial and the whole thing. But wow, that one threw me when I heard that. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I think everything, Tom, as we know from having other people on our show, detectives, whatever, everything revolves around your childhood, of your upbringing, and obviously something went wrong there. I can't, is she to blame? I don't know. I just don't think it was a healthy environment of how he was raised, having parties at the house, what he had seen, and you kind of see through the doc the Diddy change of this kind of nerdy person. And I think it was when money started coming in, he became different with the greed, and and I think his mother was all for it. And I just think it's the way you're raised. And I'm sure he saw things at the mom's party with other men there. He had no father figure, maybe many men, and he didn't know how to interpret this as a kid. And, getting beat up also doesn't help.
Yeah, and this wasn't like a spanking. These were brutal beatings by the mother. I mean, she was nasty. She was violent, and I'm sure that plays a role. I'll let some psychologist or doctor handle this from here because I'm more concerned about what he's actually done. And a lot of people have rough childhoods and whatnot. No one deserves that. But man, that
Tom, I got to interrupt. I want to say that during the OJ trial, they had when they hired jurors, they go through, what they like in someone, what they don't, and how to pick a juror for the trial. And part of it was in a culture that they said that hitting wasn't so bad, in a culture of
like corporal,
whatever.
like spanking and whatnot. I mean,
Well, like beating and slapping women, man slapping a woman.
well, that's different. What there's people that believe culturally that that's just part of it. You get out of line, you got to be slapped up or something.
According to hiring jurors, that sometimes it's not as a big thing. So I hope
Well,
I'm
that's
not speaking
interesting.
out of turn, but I remember.
No, but
hearing
that's
that
interesting
other
because
jurors.
especially in the OJ trial. I mean, that's something you got to get through right away. Like, how do you look at domestic assault that we define it as, or is it just like getting your woman in line, or right? Because the different cultures look at that in different ways. That's interesting, but maybe that did play a role because it was because it's been rumored that something was going on with the mom, but the first time ever in a doc. And by the way, they tried maybe it was People Magazine or somebody tried to talk to her about her to get a comment, no comment. So that's all you have to say by not saying anything. Yeah, I used to beat Diddy growing up. So yeah, I'm glad I got to see that side of her because she's not some victim. I'm sure she was on the payroll for many, many, many years from Diddy exploitation. So that's one of the things that came out. Here's another one. And, you kind of remember this. This happened in 1991, I think, where at City College in New York City, Diddy put on that thing with Heavy D. It was a celebrity basketball game. And Diddy over promoted it. Okay. He knew it only seated X amount of people, over promoted it like crazy. They stormed and 9 people died in a stampede. 9 people died from a Diddy event. There's death and carnage going back over 30 years with him.
Right, and then he wanted to get rid of the bad boy name, so it had no involvement with this.
Exactly.
So, I
Right.
mean, Tom, that's part of his mind, how it worked, how he made sure that he never got in trouble.
Yeah, victims there couldn't be civil lawsuits. They couldn't come after him, right? And even the way he distributed the equity in his company to make sure that he was untouchable, even though he controlled all the money, right? And everything went through him. And yeah, so I mean, that was horrific. That was a big story back then. I'm sure a lot of our viewers remember that. Throw it in the comments if you remember that. There was, 9 people being killed at a concert. I mean, Travis Scott had, I forgot how many people died at that Astroworld thing in Houston, but 9 people dying. I mean, that sounds like a European soccer disaster, right? Tragedy. I mean, but that's a big deal. That could have derailed him right there, right? But he was already thinking ahead, overhype, larger than life, build a name for myself. And if people get hurt or die along the way, that's collateral damage. Like, he would not give 2 shits about that. I don't think.
Well,
he has no conscience.
He didn't.
Yeah. Okay, so that was interesting. Also, the way Bad Boy was structured corporately, right? How the equity is distributed. It made no sense, right? For a company that was generating that type of revenue, eventually, it made no sense. There was no structure. It was very fly by the seat of the pants. But it didn't matter because it was like a fiefdom, right? He was the king, and it was all going to roll through him like a socialist, situation where they promise you all this stuff, right? They promise the people you're all going to participate, your life's going to be better, but there's, one guy or the people running the show that end up taking everything. Wake up, New York, that could be coming. I mean, that's how it works.
It's really interesting to find out, and we're going to probably find out all later, Tom, because he hid things so well. And I just wonder if Janice Combs is going to be playing a role in all this.
Yeah. Well, look, the way he distributed the equity was 75% to Janice's mom, and his business partner had 25%. So he wasn't involved at all. And that was to shield him from any potential lawsuits. Okay, you mentioned Biggie Smalls. And what a talent, what a tragedy. That was the East Coast, West Coast rivalry, if people remember that. Again, you don't have to be into the culture of hip hop or rap music, because this was pop culture. This is true crime. This is scandal. So it was in the news all the time. So, Biggie is murdered out here in LA shortly after Tupac was killed in Las Vegas. And the things that came out of that, it just made me sick to my stomach. Essentially, Biggie was supposed to go to London. Okay. Now, this is after Tupac dies, and they knew not to go to LA. Okay. Because, this was turning, the Bloods and Crips were involved. The Death Row Records wasn't playing around out here, and they were by far and away the biggest, with Suge Knight and Tupac and Dr. Dre and
Snoop Dogg.
And Snoop, of course. I mean, they dominated. They were printing money. They were just cultural heroes. So Biggie didn't want to come out here. Diddy made him. He forced him. He set him up. He set him up for this murder. In my mind, that's the interpretation I get. He brought him out here to get killed.
Tom, that part actually is so disturbing, because Biggie had this premonition. He knew not to go on the turf. And I never knew that Biggie and Tupac were friends, and Diddy became jealous of this, that they were actual friends. That Biggie's got to be thinking of his mind, who is this Diddy character? And, I imagine Diddy was thinking, Biggie had bad thoughts at some point of who this P. Diddy really was, and if he had any involvement with the Tupac murder. I think it's, normal just to think those thoughts. But convincing him to come to L.A., knowing that there's going to be something, and Diddy wanted to show that nothing would bother him. He's going to go on their dirt. He didn't care. I'm going to go on their land, and he had the Crips to back him up. And obviously we know what happened, but it's a shame, because they were friends, Tupac and Biggie, like really, according to these videos, like really close friends.
Yeah, at the very beginning, they were tight. Tupac supported Biggie Smalls. Now, as a viewer, right, that's into true crime, you got to peel back and you look for evidence and you look for layers and you try to piece things together. So let me throw this out at you and think about where this leads your mind. So when Biggie came out to LA, it was for the music awards that were going out here at the time. There's a season for that essentially in March, in the spring, right? So they all come out here, the hip hop awards, etc. Diddy and his crew rented cars in New York and drove out here. Okay. That to me, I mean, come on. That's to not have any involvement or any trail out here by, either having private drivers or having cars from LAX that you pick up or whatever from a luxury rental dealership. But can you believe that they rented cars in New York? That makes no sense. It adds to the theory that he set him up to be murdered out here.
It's exact. Tom. One of the people that stands out to me is the detective. I forget his name, but the detective, and I wonder what the detective today, if he's still involved. We have detectives on our show; they have cold cases, but I would think when we do shows, we do a lot of the Netflix from Cecil Hotel. When it's in the news, like Netflix is doing, I've got a feeling that everything's going to go up another notch with a reinvestigation of everything.
Mm-hmm. Cato, when we used to do our podcast at Action Park Media with our buddy Kevin Connolly from Entourage, everybody knows Kevin Connolly. He was in The Notebook and so many big Secretariat and so many big movies. He did a 10-parter with that detective, I think, and it's fascinating, right, on the killing of Biggie, because obviously Biggie's mom, Sean Combs' mom, knows something is up that's never been told, and she's just devastated by that. But maybe I'll call Connolly and maybe we get that cop on here. I think it would make sense, right? Because he knows stuff.
That detective was fascinating. If the research he's done, and it kind of just went cold. But it's just so interesting. I really feel, like I said, Tom, I don't know the rap world. I'm more alternative music, but watching is, it really, like you said, is not about liking something, rap music. It is one of the most incredible true crime stories, one of the best docs made. And it, like I said, it really had me involved. And it doesn't mean I like rap or anything, but it means that I'm just, I guess it's sort of like I have human feelings about the loss of life.
Cato, the music and that industry is just the backdrop. That's all it is. I mean, you don't have to be an NFL fan to be, enraptured by the O.J. Simpson saga.
No, you're right. You're right. But you know what? If you really look at it, the rap and all that, it really is a violent culture, and so it really talks about things where, I mean, everything is gun related. Everything is shooting, and the documentary had lines of I'm going to shoot you, and I can't go over, I don't remember all the lines, but everything was sort of a threat, and a threat from the East Coast to the West Coast. People that aren't, I'm assuming, super educated, this really gets under their skin, and they're going to do something about it, but they want to do it with guns.
Well, you're talking about Hit 'Em Up, right? That's the diss track that Tupac and his crew put together, when things started, because Tupac was shot outside that studio in New York City. It was clearly a hit. He had a $60,000 Rolex that they didn't take. And of course, who's behind the curtain of that one? Shocking. Diddy. Hard to believe. I mean, and then, we haven't even scratched the surface. We haven't gotten into his deal with Ciroc vodka, and what he did with that. But he can reinvent himself. And he's involved in the fashion world, the music world, and he had power that's hard to explain because he's manipulative, but he's dangerous. And I can almost see how, if you get caught in that web, Cato, what are you going to do? He's not going to pay you. He's it's going to be a brutal job. It's going to be abuse, physical. He's going to be screaming at you. There's no advancement. But what are you going to do? It's almost like you're trapped. Like, how do you look at it? Because all those people that talked in this doc, they felt like they were trapped, and now they finally were released where they can actually express what happened and how it, destroyed their life. But how do you feel about them? Do you think they should have tried to get out, or do you think?
I'll tell you, Tom, the motivation for everybody and why they didn't get out was because he was the perfectionist of dangling that carrot. I'm going to pay you. I'm going to do this for you. You can't leave me. I'm going to do this for you. And you've got that little bit of hope, because that's that was their money ticket. And they were just, he knew he could work it that way. And we saw it throughout the entire documentary. And that's why people hung on.
Yeah. And then you're also thinking about it. He could just destroy your career. I mean, if he doesn't kill you, if he's not going to pay you, he's not, you have to deal with all that, but he could actually blacklist your career because he had that type of power back then, right? He could make a couple calls to a different agency, to a record label, to a fashion, designer, and say, never hire this guy, make up stuff. So, man, what a terrible existence for.
But I think, employees. Tom, I think that power is completely gone, and I think the documentary is going to open a lot of eyes, like it opened mine.
Well, Cato, of course it's gone. I mean, this guy's a felon, right? Everybody knows about him now. He's done. He's
Yeah,
toast,
but
right?
I think people still think that he's going to, he's got time served that he's getting out in 50 months or whatever it
He
is.
gets out June 4th, 2028. He had it extended 1 month, Cato, because he was like, they were brewing some beer inside prison. So he got a little slap on the wrist. So they added a month, but it's June 4th, 2028 when he's
Brewing
coming
beer in
out.
prison. That's a great one.
Okay,
Prison
Aubrey
light.
O'Day. Aubrey O'Day, beautiful singer. She was in the reality show, and there were some very disturbing revelations about her that she found out when she was passed out and drugged. And drugs are everywhere in this thing, and it was like different concoctions they use for different things. We'll get to the freak offs in just a second, but I love Aubrey O'Day. What a terrible, tragic thing that she went through. She's very outspoken now, which I really love, man. She's a beast. She's out there and she's fighting and she's not taking any crap. So go watch it if you want to learn more about her. But there were some pretty sick things. I'm not even going to mention it sexually. What allegedly happened to her, and I'm proud of her and give her so much credit for being able to speak about it. Okay, Cato, a phrase that I don't know. Well, you're Cato Kalin. Have you heard the phrase "freak off" before Diddy got involved? Have you been to a freak off? Have you heard of freak off? Do you want to host a freak off?
I know I never heard of Freak Off. I thought that was a Rick James song, though, but I think it's Freak Out. So maybe you got it from that.
Super freak.
Freak Out, Freak Off. Yeah, the stuff they didn't. I mean, they focused. The focus that really bothered me about that, Tom, was everybody made jokes about the baby oil, but the fact that he had the oil with GHB, is it, or in the oil, that it would get in their skin to knock someone out. I mean, is that insanity or what? I mean, he's putting it in there, and people are unknowingly. And by the way, why are they putting on oil in the first place?
Well, Cato, that's for them to answer. Or maybe I have a driver that we use out here, a good friend of mine, and he's got great backstories because he used to take people to the Diddy parties all the time, right? The freak off. So he knew all about this, and
and you got A-list celebrities there, and I don't know what their involvement was, but it was the white party was the biggest thing to go to.
The white party of the Hamptons that he used to have every
and
summer.
I just wonder, Tom, I wonder if the parties start out the white party, and then it's the after party where only certain people attend is where the craziness goes. I don't know. I mean, I never went to one.
I think the white party is too mainstream. There's actual media covering them. You're right. Probably after the white party in the Hamptons, you go here and you go there or whatever. If you got the special invite, the freak offs were happening primarily Miami, LA, New York, right? That's where they were going down. Out here in the Hollywood Hills, you had houses everywhere there. So, but yeah, the baby oil. I mean, when you heard about when they raided his house and they end up taking all that baby oil out of his house in Beverly Hills here, you almost laugh at it, right? Oh man, what a weirdo. But when you figure out what it was used for, and then they would stay up for days and they would do it by different combinations of drugs, right? They'd have Molly. That would keep them going. Ecstasy, cocaine, obviously. They mentioned like 8 versions of cocaine, different colors of it, right? I mean, it's almost like he's a chemist. And he had this perfect mix to just, turn this freak off into the most insane experience that you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, I just, and it was one of the scenes where they, one of his producers, I think it was Little Rod, I forget his name, but he's the one that discovered that Diddy had cameras everywhere. And that's just another thing of how I think he already had blackmail in his mind.
Yeah, no, Little Rod is the guy. No, it's almost Epstein-esque, isn't it? I mean, these guys operate out of the same playbook, right? When you're that twisted and they get this information that they use for power, right? Because they're just so deviant to start with, and they take advantage of people's vulnerabilities, and then they own them. They basically own them. Yeah, Little Rod is, you mentioned him. Yeah, and then I think you have to give a lot of credit to this guy named Clayton Howard. He's a former escort. He called himself a gigolo. And he was the one really at the epicenter at the very beginning of these freak offs. And Diddy started him with Cassie, I think, right? When he was with Cassie and things like that. And then it just escalated and escalated, but you learned about the baby oil and, staying up for 18 hours or 2 or 3 days at a time. But that guy went out on a limb. If anybody, I got to believe some of these people that spoke out are going to fear for their life. For being so vocal. What do you think? And that guy would be one of them, but he was very articulate. He was great.
Yeah. The gigolo part was sort of, it's just amazing that Diddy would have Cassie and whatever threesomes or just have him pleasure her, it kind of, yeah, I got a little sick, a little queasy from that, knowing that this is demented mind, and they all were part of it. They were, you know, was it because of money? He made money. He talked that he got paid, and it was like what people will do. And how does she do all this? Is it because she's on drugs? I think it's because she's with Diddy. She's getting money, and she'll do anything to please him. But I'm you you got low self-esteem basically if you're doing this sort of thing.
Well, yes, and when you're drugged up, you're not even making conscious decisions, and when you're physically abused and you fear for your life, like I'm sure Cassie did. Now we'll talk more about Cassie because obviously the jury wasn't a big fan of hers and some of the stuff that she did. But yeah, these freak offs were there's just like you can't even imagine. I mean, it's just like beyond crazy. And then another big thing that was revealed in this, Cato, is just a steady, constant pattern of financial exploitation. He would take advantage of people, and you had these, a who's who lineup of people talking about the same types of things, where he would double dip, he'd steal equity, he wasn't fair in distributions and everything. He was everything a RICO charge is wrapped in one. You know what I mean? And if this doc had come out earlier, maybe things, would have ended differently with that trial and would have got more time. But God, he's just a scumbag, man, on every single level.
Tom, if you look at when you see him going through those phases, you knew what kind of person he was going to be, and what he was is that he always picked his best buddy's girl. He always had to steal. He always had to get the other person's, and you start thinking, why? Is it an ego thing, or is it a thing to make them feel horrible and to make the girl like she's weak, she's going to sleep with me too? It's just sort of disgusting. What kind of person does that? You can't trust your friend. And he's obviously was never a friend to any of them.
No. Cato, he's a classic groomer, right? He groomed these people, especially the women. And when he had, he held their careers in their hands, their financial future, their safety, everything. He knew how to use it. And we mentioned Biggie Smalls and we mentioned financial. And, when Biggie died, obviously, Diddy wanted to throw the biggest funeral ever in New York. He wanted to make it a huge show. And I think you mentioned this earlier. He freaking made Biggie's estate pay for it. I mean, God, it's just like.
And no one knew that. No one knew that because everybody's thinking Diddy's taking care of this. He's making someone that has died pay for, his funeral.
His family, his estate, right? And think about it, kid. You have the biggest funeral in New York City. Think how costly that is. Like you're shutting down roads, you're hiring security. It's insane, right?
Oh, millions. And looking at the doc and the example of him having paying the estate of Biggie paying for the funeral, I really believe after seeing this, Diddy had no talent. He couldn't sing. He couldn't dance. We see that. He couldn't rap. All the stuff that he was supposed to be able to do, he couldn't do. And
he couldn't, man.
The stuff that he did, Tom, he stole. He got Sting song, Jimmy Page, Kashmir, Led Zeppelin. It's like, stuff that we could do probably.
With a mixer? Great point. And you had multiple people saying that too. He couldn't produce. He couldn't rap. Although he tried, he'd throw himself out there. Maybe that's why he's always reinventing himself and changing his name and whatnot. Got into fashion. And he's always going to make big money because he's a marketer, right? And he knows how to do that. And then Ciroc, right? And then he tries to accuse the ownership of being, racist. And you know what, Gato, they offered him, they said they were only like moving 40,000 cases of that when they brought him in. And they said, if you can get it to 1 million cases, it's going to be almost $1 billion deal. That's where he got all his money. That's how he got so wealthy, where he was almost a billionaire.
Exactly. And Ciroc, now I don't know if that's even around anymore, what the stock is and what kind of PR control they had to do for that.
The parent company is Diageo. They're the biggest alcohol spirits company in the world. They're massive. Think about an alcohol brand and they own it. Casamigos. That's how Randy Gerber.
It's kind of funny, Tom, that we're talking about Ciroc, where he could possibly have made $1 billion, and now he's brewing his own beer in prison. It's sort of like, what a great campaign.
What a downfall. No, but yeah, so I mentioned Diageo. They're the ones that, bought out Casamigos from George Clooney, Randy Gerber, and Michael Melman. So they're the biggest. They have everybody. And oh, man, it kind of reminded me of when When Adidas and Kim Kardashian's ex, right, right, the rapper. Since we're on that line, and he was calling them Nazis and whatnot, and just how this magical relationship that they have for a while could just disappear. And there was so much money involved, but it just shows people are just nuts. They're just nuts.
I wonder, Tom, if there's also, I think this doc is going to be ultra successful. I really think people are like we're talking about it. I think if we're talking about it, many people are talking about it. I wonder if 50 Cent has some hidden video still that has not been released. And, like you said, he's a smart businessman. I think there's still stuff that we haven't seen.
Bonus footage, the director's cut. You never know, man.
Or saving stuff for maybe possible lawsuits, whatever. But there's always like the ace in the hole.
Okay, you really made me think there. That makes a lot of sense because, clearly Netflix cleared this. Their lawyers looked at it, and it's airing, and it's a huge hit. But yeah, if you have a little bit more, or maybe the worst part, you hold on to that, because if they ever try to come at you, well, I got this other smoking gun. Do you really want this out there? So it does protect yourself if they are holding something here. And let's talk a little bit about 50 Cent as an executive producer. Is this a revenge documentary? I mean, they have had beef for 20 years, right? They've been rivals for 2 decades. Can he be objective if he's telling a story about Diddy? What about that question? How do you feel about that?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Tom. Do you know what the feud? Is it explained what the feud is about? Is it just this hatred? Did someone burn someone? Did he go after one of his girls, whatever? But what caused this feud? Is that ever answered?
50 Cent knows what kind of person Diddy is, and he knows he was getting away with it, and and he's sick about it. He's got a conscience, right? He's a decent guy, so that's why he hates him. You think I guarantee you, if Diddy tried to go after 50 Cent's girl back in the day, there would be repercussions for Diddy, no doubt. But I just think he thinks he's just a slimy, disgraceful human being, and he wants the truth out, and he has compassion for the victims, and he's damn talented as a filmmaker. So, can he be objective? Here's how you be objective: let the facts speak for themselves. Right. And that's what they did. They interviewed people who were in the inner circle and talked about Diddy and described what kind of person he was. They have video footage. They have court transcripts. They have enough. So let the truth lead you. It wasn't like a commentary.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think that something was brewing, though. And I imagine 50 Cent, he knew he had a gold mine. And he, like you said, he did the whole company, the editors, everybody with this, they made it so good. Like I said, I rarely watch all episodes in a row. I watched all 4. It was really unusual. And that was a long night for me. But like Tom, it is really, I think 50 Cent's got a good heart, and he wanted to see people on the other side of what evil is. And it really comes across that way. I really think that Diddy was not a good person. He's not a good person, and he affected so many lives, and he affected them in the beginning like in a good thing, like they love this guy, and as you see as it goes along, they can't stand him. They saw him for what he's worth, and he betrayed everybody. If anybody was going to be cast as Judas with the kiss to Jesus, it's Diddy.
Yeah. What this did is, if you followed the trial or if you just follow media accounts, he's a scumbag. But this just put jet fuel on that. And you had no idea somebody could be like this. And more importantly, you didn't think somebody could get away with this. There's so many times, he's behind more than likely Tupac's murder and Biggie's. There's death around him. He and his manager, who he completely abused and manipulated, this girl Capricorn, when they basically kidnapped Kid Cudi and wanted to kill him because he went hiking with Cassie. I mean, this guy is like a mafia boss times a cartel leader and the devil. He's just a combination of all of it.
Well, Tom, I really think that word of mouth that when it was going on, I think there really was a word of mouth about all the bad things, possibly connected to Tupac. Is Diddy connected to Biggie? I think that's word of mouth because that's common for that to go around. What really is upsetting is I really think uh, advertisers, everybody knew this about him, and yet they still said, "Yeah, whatever. We're going to make money off this person." So it's kind of them to blame too, because it's just amazing that they'll still work with someone that I think the word of mouth is he's not a good person, and I blame that.
But Kato, you got to look at it like this, though. This documentary laid out just how evil and sick and bad of a person he is. But for 30 years, he was culturally relevant. He could move the needle. He literally could, right? And there was a part of him that was, people were attracted to the lifestyle, the glamour, the music, the fashion, the drinks, the party. So he had he could be very, very powerful as far as how he affected pop culture and certain ethnic communities and whatnot. So and marketers and advertisers are going to jump on that in a second because it's profits, it's money.
Yeah, I mean, I still think my point is right, that it's still, even though it does move money, which is the bottom line for them, I still think they knew it's sort of signing a deal with the devil. That's just my opinion, and I think they know, and at that time, culturally, that was the hot thing, still hot, but the award shows, the rap culture and all that was big. Films, all this stuff was coming out, and as being the biggest thing to do, and everybody wanted to be part of it. So,
but if they were to do a morals clause or not get into business for people that are at that level because of their lifestyle or whatever, nothing would be sold and nothing would be marketed, right? Because I'm not saying everybody's on Diddy's level, but you kind of sign that away when you get involved. And that you can sell a lot of tequila vodka, you can move a lot of jeans, right? All right, hey Cassie, we can talk about her for 1 second. The jury just didn't buy her because if it was so bad, and the video of her being kicked and stomped at the hotel in Century City here, was so graphic. But you know what? She just didn't. She didn't captivate that jury because why not leave, right? And that's easy for them to say, but she wasn't effective as a witness in her civil trial. Oh, okay. So, Kato, why don't we get into some of these implications, right? Because was your head spinning? What were you thinking right away when something this explosive comes out? What were you thinking? Like there could be some fire on. Who could be facing the fire or some blowback?
The question is, though, you mean before all this?
Well, you mentioned 50 Cent right away. Like, is he liable, right? Or is there something that could happen to him?
I think I thought the same as you did. I think Netflix, like you said, they're not going to put something on their network unless they're boom ready. They may have something that, we'll settle something. We have this much money in mind if we do get sued, or they're just going, no, this is we've got our team of lawyers. We'll take this on. So I think they knew whatever deal that Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent walked in on, and he said, I've got this stuff. Let's make a show. They looked at it and they said, legally, we can do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's accurate. He's an executive producer, 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, and producers are generally protected if they're doing things responsibly and they can rely on court depositions, media accounts, and things like that. So that protects them to a certain extent. And this documentary uses a lot of sworn statements. Okay, so that protects him right there. Real interviews that have been conducted over the years, right? Real news stories, real allegations, and so he's protected, and he's got that mischievous smirk. 50 Cent, he always does. Like he's got you, and he's got Diddy right here. And man, you talk about the ultimate power move of exposing Diddy, a guy that he can't stand. So no, I think 50 Cent's totally clean here.
And it's funny, Tom, that 50 Cent, like I said, he held it really close to the vest. I knew nothing about this. He had to be on the edge of his seat every day going, wait till this thing comes. He's probably with bated breath going, I can't wait till this is released. When you got something you can't tell anybody yet? And I imagine he had that feeling of, oh, I've got something, wait till you see. And now we're seeing it.
Diddy could face new charges. New testimony, new witnesses, new alleged incidents, some as recent as 2022. So if any of these allegations are substantiated and corroborated, he could face more charges for this. Federal, state charges. They could reopen some of the previous investigations, especially if new victims come through. And they did in this documentary. So that would be great. And here's the other thing too: that video footage that he paid for or hired, probably didn't pay for, like we said, that could come back to bite him too. Because the things are, they can ask for all the raw footage, not just the stuff that ended up, right? And there could be stuff while that camera was rolling that we don't know about. So that could be something that he regrets.
And I wonder if that was part of the deal, that 50 Cent got all the footage, or if the videographer said, you can have this footage, but I'm keeping it. We don't know. But I agree, this could be some, like I said, this footage, there is raw footage somewhere. So we're gonna probably find out with these stories that are coming out. Tom, I really think if we can, that the stories with the detective, it was just investigating these two crimes of the Biggie and the way he spoke about it. It's amazing. And I can't get over, and I know we're going to wrap up, but I can't get over the fact of the one where they took a guy into a bathroom and shot him during an album session. And I'm going, how does no one get charged with something, a murder of a person? And I'm blown away at that whole story. It's like, what in the world? And that's on video. They go in the bathroom.
Yeah. There's two other things I think we could talk about here, and we'll wrap it up. Civil suits could multiply. Everybody's heard the phrase ambulance chasers, right? You know somebody's in an accident, and you got lawyers that's their whole business model, right? Find victims of accidents. There's tons of ads playing all the time here in LA. We got some big ones, like big time lawyers out here and all over, really, that do that. But Cato, there are attorneys that watch documentaries and with a fine-tooth comb, and they go to these witnesses and they give them opportunities to file lawsuits or to reopen them. And I think that's going to happen here. These guys track major docs. They just do. And if there's money to be made there, they're going to go after them. So I think this emboldens a lot of people that were caught up in his world. And I think it will empower a lot of them he's already facing tons of civil lawsuits, but I think there could be more. I think that's going to be one of the fallouts here. So good. If he has any money left, I hope it all goes away to every one of the victims. And then, Cato, final question, and we'll end it with this. And I'd love to get everybody's comments. Okay, load up our comments. I'm going to start with you, Cato. Would you have done it? And do you think these witnesses and people on the documentary, their life is in danger in any way, shape, or form for speaking about Diddy like they did? What do you think?
I don't think so, because I think after time they saw that they knew what they were going to get into, and I think by them confessing of how they were betrayed by Diddy, that it falls in their favor, that there's nothing will happen to them. I'm talking about the people that were in relationships with Diddy. As far as I don't know what's going to happen with the mom. I don't know if there's stuff that's hidden. I think that's going to be a fascinating story. She declined, no comment. I just think there's a lot we don't know about that. And I think that is a big question mark.
Well, here, I was even being more specific. I'm saying, could Diddy try to kill these people or injure them? Here, let me give you my answer. I think hell yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, I don't think he has the power to do it anymore. I don't think anybody wants to associate themselves with him that would actually take another life. Okay. But do I think Diddy's sitting in jail, in prison, and thinking, okay, who am I calling to take care of business with her? Who am I going to call to shut him up? How dare he say that about me? And he's a sociopath, so he's going to believe in his mind the reality that he thinks exists there. I totally think that he's scheming. I hope they have recordings in his jail cell 24/7, because my thought is, he's not taking this lightly. He's not going to be able to do anything because he just doesn't have that type of reach and power anymore. And anybody knows they're not going to be paid anyway if they hire him as a hitman. But I do think I could see if they were seriously scared for their life to talk like that.
Well, I'll go with you to the point there. I think it's the other way, that Diddy knows that there's so much is under a microscope right now, that there's no way he would attempt to do that, because there's going to be, like you said, other investigations possibly going on, that he's going to have to just be go to another country or something. I think he's done, and he can't afford it, because they'll be the first one to look at him. And conversations in prison of it's criminals in prison, like, I can do you a favor, Diddy, and all these things would be, like you said, possibly recorded. But let's face it, that's the worst thing he could do.
Well, I got one final message. Rotten hell, Diddy, you piece of scum. We already knew you were bad, but thank you, 50 Cent, for exposing Diddy for being even worse than anyone could imagine. And, wouldn't it be great? Like a big paper. You know what? You know how we could fix the economy, Cato? Here's how we fix the economy. We could wipe out our national debt overnight. We get, a big ring, and we put Koberger and Diddy right in that ring, and we release some bulls, some coyotes, some wild boars, some tigers, polar bear, and just let them go to town on these guys like a Hunger Games. I mean, come on, who wouldn't pay $100 for that? We'd wipe out our $300 trillion debt overnight.
I'm sure they're probably doing it at Netflix right now. They probably heard you just say that. Who knows? But like you said, the doc, though, it's amazing. I think 50 cents earned $1.
Hey, and I'm going to leave it how I started. I felt dirty. I felt sick watching this thing. I couldn't wait for it to be over. Felt so bad for those people. They were trapped in these lies. But I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I did. It's a powerful piece, and 50 Cent did a great job. So I'm going to move on to something. Maybe I'm going to watch some Hallmark Christmas movies and cleanse myself. How about you? No joke. Can you leave us with a joke? You got anything funny happened to you lately? Any airport stories? What's going on? Give me something. Let's lighten the mood.
Well, I'm hosting two things coming up next week for Christmas. I'm hosting, I've got to be funny, hosting a very, very large corporate event December 12th. So I'm looking forward to that with a very, I won't mention the woman's name, but you look around LA, pretty much owns a lot of it. And then I'm heading out to a friend of yours that same night, flying out and being, I got an award in Phoenix as the, being on a show as the best podcast in Arizona when I sat down with the crew, and I'll be there enjoying and I guess winning some award. So
that's amazing. Don't be so nebulous about this. This is John Holmberg and his partner Brady. They are awesome, right?
Great. I love these guys. They're really taking care of me. So.
They've been on the radio for 25 plus years. They just own the marketplace there. They're funny as hell. Risk takers are crazy. Used to make fun of me because I did my sports talk show out of the same building. And they used to make fun of me every day. I mean, but they were awesome. Holmberg's the best.
Oh yeah. And Tom, being from Phoenix, I don't know if you were there at the time, but I know you worked with the Phoenix Suns. I went to a basketball game with John when I did a show out there back last year's basketball season. There's a club that's a restaurant club that's in the Phoenix. What's the stadium called?
Well, it used to be America West Arena. Now it's named after the owner's mortgage company.
It is spectacular.
Yes, Cato, that's NBA life now, man. That used to be called the Lexus Club. Right, the players walk right by you. It's awesome. Mm-hmm.
And not only that, how many people get high fives in a conversation with the mascot?
Right. Think about a fan that day. They get to high five Cato Kalin, the Gorilla, and Devin Booker all in the same day, man. That's a win for a Phoenix Sun fan. All right. Hey, I'm glad we attacked this. A couple more episodes next week. Our stuff is really hot right now. Everybody loves Scott Michaels, that episode. If you haven't seen that, we covered some great ground there. We're going to close the year in style, and go back and watch the Frank Salerno interviews if you haven't, and join our membership. We got something for everybody if you want to jump on board. Okay. 2026 is going to be big, but ended in style. End 2025 in style. K-Train. For the one and only Cato Kalin, I'm Tom Zenner. This is Tom Zenner Scandal, and we will see you very, very soon.